Hello there, what am I? I'm Black Bright News on this video. So good morning and welcome. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Supreme Court ruling about what a woman is. And at first I thought, oh my goodness, this is quite brave, it's quite controversial. But what it's actually doing, it's just clarifying. It's not denouncing somebody's gender identity. What it is doing is confirming what a woman is. And I thought that was fair. Because what happens is that people, they get confused with biological sex, the biological woman, the transgender sex, and the different types of gender identities. And they try to merge them all into one. But what the Supreme Court ruling is saying that a woman is defined by her biological birth. So yeah, you can have a lot of men out there who aspire to be women and who say, yes, I'm a woman, I am now to be addressed as a woman. This ruling doesn't take that away. All it is saying is that, look, for you to be categorized as a woman by law, you have to be born biologically a woman. So I decided to read the LBC one, and it says trans women are not legally women. Supreme Court defined women by biological sex in landmark ruling. And I think it is so important, especially for young people who could be confused. I'm not sure if this clarifies it clearly enough. But I think for young people who are confused about their identity, this helps. Because really, if you're born biologically a woman, you are a woman. You can make decisions. You can make decisions to change that identity. But for the purposes, or if you are under arrest, because what happens is, just supposing the police want to stop you. And they can usually look at you and say, yeah, you're a male, you're a female. And what's been happening recently, I understand, is that transgender persons have wanted to be identified as a female when they're a man, and the police have been acknowledging them as a female out of respect. And what they're saying, it's confusing the data. So the individual can refuse to say what their identity is. And what would normally happen, as with the race, if people don't want to give their race, they don't want to say what part of their world they come from, the police officers could make an assumption based on how they look or who they are. I don't know how they do that. I don't know how white people can tell where a black person is from, or whether a black person is mixed race, or whether whatever assignment they have to their race. Because the thing with race is that you can't go by the colour. You can't go by the accent, because you have so many people, especially young people, emulating the Jamaican accent, emulating the African accent when they are not from Africa or they're not from Jamaica. And if you're from the Caribbean, what's to say you're not from Trinidad, Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Kitts, wherever? And if you're African, mind you, they do have a wide span. But what I'm saying is that the police will not know an African person different from a Caribbean person. They'll lump them all in the same boat, because how can they have a clue unless the person volunteers that information? So similarly, if you've got somebody who's transgender and they are not obviously transgender, some transgender people or gay people, they exaggerate their they gesticulate and they really exaggerate, and you can more or less tell that they're men who aspire to be women or who have assigned a gender identity. But there are some men who you would not know that they are not female because they're demure. There is no accentuation of actions or words. They look pure, they look feminine, they behave feminine. There's no gesticulation, there's no exaggeration. And so if a police officer came across a transgender person or somebody who's had gender assignment and looked at that person, they would have to deduce whether or not they felt that that person was a male or a female if that person wasn't willing to disclose their gender identity. So I think what the courts are saying is, once again, it's probably a tick box exercise to say how many males they catch versus how many females. And then if you've got a lot of transgender males being ticked off as females, it's going to distort the figures. And I think that is where they're coming from. I might not be articulating this very well, but I hope I'm doing it in a way that is respectful and in a way that makes people feel comfortable. So let me get back to this. The Supreme Court has ruled that a woman refers to biological sex under equality laws. That's the Equality Act 2010. So woman and sex refer to the biological woman and biological sex in the Equality Act 2010, Lord Hodge has said. The Supreme Court ruling follows a series of challenges brought by For Women Scotland FWS, a women's right campaign group, over the definition of woman in Scottish legislation mandating 50% female representation on public boards. That's interesting. Because, if you are transgender and they're trying to have a representation of female and male, that's not an accurate definition then, is it? It's not accurate representation. The dispute centres on whether or not somebody with a gender recognition certificate recognising their gender as female should be treated as a woman under the 2010 Equality Act. Opening the Supreme Court judgment, Lord Reid called on all parties to respect the dignity of the court. Whatever your feeling may be, please respect the dignity of these courts and remain silent until the court is adjourned. He said the central question is how the words woman and sex are defined in the 2010 Equality Act. He said, do these terms refer to biological women or biological sex? Or is a woman to be interpreted as extending to a trans woman with a gender recognition certificate? The unanimous decision of this court is that the term woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer to a biological woman and biological sex. He went on to say, the Equality Act 2010 gives transgender people protection not only against discrimination through the protected characteristic of gender reassignment, but also against direct discrimination, indirect discrimination, and harassment in substance in their acquired gender. This is the application of the principle of discrimination by association. And those statutory protections are available to transgender people whether or not they possess a gender recognition certificate. So I'll leave it there. I'd appreciate your thoughts, what you think, whether you think I'm being fair or unfair, whether you think the court is being fair or unfair. Let me have your thoughts. I'm Black Bright News, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.